Jack Howard stood at the entrance of the Great Hall, trying to ignore the whispers. The massive curved ceiling of the Galactic Council chamber loomed above him like a dome of judgment. He straightened his blue Earth uniform and took a deep breath. This was not his first time representing Earth, but it never got easier. The other species always looked at humans the same way, like they were watching children play with tools they didn't understand. The human representative approaches, announced a tall, thin alien with skin that shimmered like polished metal. Its voice echoed through the chamber. Jack walked forward, his footsteps echoing on the stone-like floor. Around him sat delegates from the 7 systems, some with tentacles, others with too many eyes, some looking almost human except for their strange-colored skin. All of them powerful, all of them looking down at Earth. "Commander Howard of Earth," Jack said, bowing slightly. "I bring greetings from our planet." A low rumble of laughter spread through the chamber. The head counselor, a being named Vrex with 4 arms and scales that changed color with his mood, leaned forward. "Earth sends just one representative, again." Vrex's scales flickered from blue to a mocking purple. How efficient. More laughter. Jack kept his face calm. This was normal. Humans were new to space travel compared to these ancient races. They saw Earth as the galaxy's young, simple cousin. "One voice can be enough when the message is clear," Jack said. "Indeed," said Vrex, clearly not interested in what Jack had to say. "Take your observer seat, Commander. The true business of the galaxy awaits." Jack moved to a small platform at the edge of the room. The observer seat was the Council's way of reminding Earth they weren't important enough for a real vote. He sat and activated his translator pad as the Council began discussing trade routes and border disputes. 3 hours later, the normal business was interrupted by the arrival of royal guards in gleaming armor. They marched in perfect step, surrounding a tall figure in flowing robes of deep green. The figure pulled back his hood, revealing the stern face of King Zorith of Solarian Prime, one of the oldest and most powerful worlds in the Council. The room fell silent. Even Vrex stood in respect. "The Council recognizes King Zorith," Vrex said, his scales now a respectful gold. "I come on a matter of family honor," King Zorith said. His voice was deep and carried easily through the chamber. "My 3rd daughter, Princess Lyra, has brought shame to the royal house of Solarian Prime." Jack watched with interest. Family matters were rarely brought before the Council. This must be serious. "The princess has been studying forbidden sciences," King Zorith continued. "Worse, she has openly questioned this Council's wisdom regarding developing worlds. Such behavior cannot be tolerated in one of royal blood." The king's face showed no emotion as he spoke about his daughter. "Therefore, I am sending Princess Lyra away as an ambassador to the Outer Rim. She will learn the proper ways of diplomacy far from our central worlds." Everyone knew what this meant. The Outer Rim was where careers and reputations died. It was exile dressed up as a diplomatic post. A wise decision. Vrex nodded. The royal house must maintain its perfect image. As the council members nodded in agreement, Jack noticed a small figure being escorted into a side chamber by more guards. She walked with her head high, violet eyes flashing with defiance. This had to be Princess Lyra. Unlike her father, whose face showed nothing, the princess made no effort to hide her anger. Jack watched as she disappeared through a door. Something about her caught his attention. Not just her beauty, though she was beautiful with her pale blue skin and silver-streaked hair. It was the look in her eyes, the look of someone who refused to accept defeat. The council moved on to other matters, but Jack kept thinking about the princess. On Earth, families stood by each other. The idea of a father sending his daughter away to save his reputation seemed completely wrong to Jack. He wondered what forbidden science she had been studying, and what she had said about developing worlds that made the council so angry. Little did Jack know that his path would soon cross with Princess Lyra's, and that meeting would change the galaxy forever. After the council meeting ended, Jack walked through the vast halls of the council building. Most aliens avoided him, turning away when he came near. Humans were still seen as too new, too emotional to be taken seriously in galactic politics. Jack checked his datapad. He had 2 hours before his next meeting. Maybe he could learn more about Princess Lyra, and why her father was so quick to send her away. Jack had always been too curious for his own good, as his commander often reminded him. He headed toward the archives section. The council kept records of all important people and events. As he walked down a quiet hallway, he noticed a door slightly open. Strange blue light poured out from inside. Jack paused, then moved closer. He heard rapid typing and someone muttering under their breath. Carefully, he pushed the door open wider. Inside was Princess Lyra, her fingers flying over a council computer terminal. The blue light from the screen lit up her face. She was downloading files, lots of them. This should be enough proof, she whispered to herself. If they won't listen to me, maybe they'll listen to the data. Jack stepped into the room without thinking. Proof of what? Lyra spun around, her violet eyes wide with shock. How did you? She stopped when she saw his Earth uniform. The human. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, Jack said. These archives are restricted. Lyra stood up straight, looking every bit a princess despite her father's public shaming. I'm collecting my research before I'm sent away. Research that could help many worlds if the council would only listen. Jack moved closer to see the screen. It showed complex scientific formulas and growth charts for plants on various planets. Terraform acceleration, Jack said, recognizing the patterns. Earth scientists had been working on similar ideas for decades. You've found a way to speed up the process. Lyra looked surprised. Yes, 10 times faster than current methods, and it uses local resources instead of imported materials. The council says it's too radical, that developing worlds aren't ready for such technology. Her voice grew bitter. They prefer to keep newer worlds dependent on the 7 systems. Jack's mind raced. Earth's colonies struggled with food production. This research could change everything for them. Before he could respond, they heard the heavy footsteps of guards approaching. They found me, Lyra said, quickly pulling a data chip from the terminal. My father's guards. They'll take my research and make sure it never sees the light of day. Jack made a split-second decision. Come with me. What? Now. Jack grabbed her hand just as the door burst open. 3 tall Xilarian guards in royal armor filled the doorway. Princess Lyra, the lead guard said, you are ordered to return to your quarters immediately. Jack stepped forward. The princess is with me now. Earth diplomatic course. The guards looked confused. She is to be prepared for her journey to the Outer Rim. There's been a change of plans, Jack said, hoping he sounded more confident than he felt. Earth is claiming Princess Lyra as a scientific consultant under Section 12 of the Diplomatic Exchange Agreement. This was a real section, but Jack was stretching its meaning far beyond what it was intended for. Still, the guards hesitated. Princess Lyra is Xilarian royalty, the lead guard said. She cannot simply. I accept Earth's offer, Lyra interrupted, moving to stand beside Jack. As is my right as an adult citizen of the 7 systems. The guards looked at each other. This situation was beyond their authority to handle. The king will hear of this, the lead guard warned. I'm counting on it, Jack replied. After the guards left to report to their king, Lyra turned to Jack with a mixture of surprise and curiosity on her face. Do you realize what you've done? She asked. You've just made an enemy of one of the most powerful kings in the galaxy. Jack shrugged. Wouldn't be my first bad decision, but I think helping you might be one of my better ones. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. I know enough, Jack said. Your research could help Earth. And on my planet, we don't throw away brilliant minds just because they don't follow the rules. For the first time, Lyra smiled. It transformed her face completely. My father and the council will try to stop us, she warned. Let them try, Jack said. We humans are pretty good at beating the odds. News of Jack's claim on Princess Lyra spread through the council building like wildfire. By the time they reached the Earth diplomatic quarters, everyone was talking about the human who dared to challenge King Zorith. "We need to leave quickly," Jack said as he packed his few belongings. "Your father won't let this stand for long." Lyra stood by the window, looking out at the gleaming towers of the council world. "I've never been to Earth before. Is it true that you have only one son?" "Just one," Jack confirmed. "And lots of water. You'll like it." A beeping sound came from Jack's communication device. He answered it to see the angry face of his boss, Admiral Pete Davis. "Howard, what have you done?" the Admiral demanded. "I'm getting calls from every council member about you kidnapping a princess." "Not kidnapping, sir. Diplomatic protection. She has research that could help our colonies, and her father was going to bury it." The Admiral rubbed his forehead. "This is going to cause problems." "Big problems, yes, sir, but also big opportunities." After a long pause, the Admiral sighed. "The Starlight Venture will pick you up in 2 hours. Don't make this worse before then." 2 hours later, Jack and Lyra boarded the Earth ship Starlight Venture. It was small compared to council ships, but humans built their vessels for speed and adaptability rather than show. Captain Diane Lewis greeted them at the boarding ramp. "Welcome aboard, Commander Howard." She nodded to Lyra. "Your Highness." Lyra smiled. "Just Lyra is fine, Captain. I suspect my royal title isn't worth much anymore." As the ship pulled away from the council dock, Jack showed Lyra to her quarters. They were simple by royal standards, but comfortable. "We'll reach Earth in about 3 weeks, Jack explained. "I hope that's not too long for you." "After living my entire life in a palace where I couldn't speak my mind, 3 weeks of freedom will pass quickly," Lyra said. Over the next few days, Jack and Lyra spent much time together. She showed him her research on terraform acceleration, explaining how it could transform barren planets into habitable ones in years instead of centuries. "The Council doesn't want developing worlds to have this technology," Lyra explained. "They prefer to keep newer species dependent on them for resources." Jack nodded. "Earth has faced similar problems. The Council only gave us the basics of space travel, claiming we weren't ready for more advanced technology." During their meals together, Jack told Lyra about his life on Earth. He showed her pictures of his family's farm in Wisconsin, the lakes and forests near his childhood home. "You lived with your parents until adulthood?" Lyra asked, surprised. "On Solarian Prime, royal children are sent to separate housing at age 5 to learn independence." "That sounds lonely," Jack said. Lyra looked down. It was. On the 7th day of their journey, alarms blared throughout the ship. Jack rushed to the bridge. Lyra close behind him. "Captain, what's happening?" Jack asked. Captain Lewis pointed to the view screen. 3 ships on an intercept course. Solarian design. "My father," Lyra said, her face pale. "He's sent ships to bring me back." "How did they find us?" Jack wondered. "We're off the main travel routes." "There must be a tracker somewhere," Captain Lewis said, "or a spy on board." The ship rocked as the first shots hit their shields. "They're firing warning shots," the tactical officer reported. "They want us to stop and prepare for boarding." Jack turned to Lyra. "Any ideas?" Lyra thought for a moment, then nodded. "The Perseus Arm. It's not far from here. The energy storms will hide us from their sensors." "The Perseus Arm is dangerous," Captain Lewis warned. "Those energy storms could damage our ship." "Not if we modulate our shields to match the storm frequency," Lyra said. She moved to a control panel. "May I?" Captain Lewis hesitated, then nodded. Lyra's fingers flew over the controls, making adjustments to the shield systems. "This should help us pass through safely. It's based on my research." "Helm, set course for the Perseus Arm. Maximum speed," Captain Lewis ordered. The Starlight Venture changed course, racing toward the swirling energy clouds of the Perseus Arm. Behind them, The Xilarian ships followed. "They're still gaining on us," the tactical officer reported. Lyra looked at Jack, worry in her violet eyes. "My father's ships are faster than yours. We need to reach the storms before they catch us." Jack put his hand on her shoulder. "We will. Humans are good at escaping impossible situations." The Perseus arm grew larger on the view screen, beautiful and deadly swirls of energy filling their view. It was going to be close. The Starlight Venture raced toward the swirling energy clouds of the Perseus arm. The ship shook as they entered the outer edges of the storm. "Shields holding at 82%, reported Officer Kim from the tactical station. "The Princess's adjustments are working." On the view screen, beautiful colors danced across space. Blues, purples, and greens mixed together like paint in water. It was both beautiful and deadly. "The Xilarian ships are still following us," Captain Lewis said. "They must be desperate to get the princess back." Lyra stood next to Jack, watching the energy readings. "If we go deeper into the storm, they won't be able to follow. Their ships aren't designed for this kind of environment." "Neither is ours," Jack reminded her. "Trust me," Lyra said. Her violet eyes met Jack's. In just a few days, they had built a strange kind of trust. Captain Lewis nodded. "Take us in deeper, helm." The ship moved further into the storm. Lightning-like energy flashed around them. The ship shook harder now. "Shields at 64%, Officer Kim reported. "One of the Xilarian ships is turning back." "The other two are still coming," said the officer at the sensor station. "They're firing." A blast hit the Starlight Venture, sending everyone grabbing for support. "Shields at 47%, Officer Kim called out. "We can't take many more hits like that." Lyra moved to the control panel again. "Captain, if I direct more power to the lower shields and then dive below the energy plane, we might lose them." Captain Lewis looked at Jack, who nodded. "Do it," she ordered. Lyra's fingers moved quickly over the controls. The ship tilted downward, diving below the main energy field. The Xilarians fired again, but most shots missed as the Starlight Venture dropped away. "It's working," Jack said. "They're losing us." Suddenly, a massive energy wave appeared directly ahead of them. "Evasive action," Captain Lewis shouted. The ship turned hard, but the wave was too close. It hit them with tremendous force. The lights went out, and emergency systems kicked in. When the ship stabilized, Jack helped Lyra up from the floor where they had both fallen. "Damage report," Captain Lewis called. "Engines operating at 40%. Shields down to 23%, Officer Kim reported. But the Xilarians were hit harder. They're turning back." A cheer went up on the bridge. They had escaped. "Set course for Earth," Captain Lewis ordered. "Best speed we can manage." 2 weeks later, the damaged Starlight Venture limped into Earth orbit. Despite their slower speed, no more Xilarian ships had appeared. They had made it safely to Earth. As they prepared to land at the main spaceport in North America, Jack could see Lyra was nervous. "What will happen to me now?" she asked quietly. "You'll be safe," Jack promised. "Earth protects its friends." The landing was smooth. When the doors opened, Jack was surprised to see Admiral Davis waiting with a group of serious-looking officials. "Commander Howard," the Admiral said stiffly, "you and your guest are to come with me immediately." They were taken to Earth Central Command, a large building in what was once called Washington, D.C. In a conference room, Admiral Davis and several other high-ranking officials waited for them. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Admiral Davis asked Jack. His face was red with anger. "King Zorith has demanded his daughter's return. The Galactic Council is threatening sanctions against Earth, all because you decided to interfere in royal family matters." "With respect, sir," Jack said, standing tall, "Princess Lyra has vital scientific knowledge that could help our colonies. Her father was going to silence her because she challenged the Council's policies." "Is this true?" A woman in a blue uniform asked Lyra directly. Jack recognized her as General Linda Patel, one of Earth's top scientists. Lyra nodded. I've developed methods to accelerate terraforming by using local resources instead of imported materials. The Council doesn't want developing worlds to have this technology. They prefer to keep newer species dependent on them. Show me, General Patel said. Lyra took out her data chip and inserted it into the room's computer system. The screens filled with complex formulas and growth models. General Patel studied the information, her eyes growing wider. This is remarkable. If this works as shown, we could make Mars fully habitable in 5 years instead of 50. Admiral Davis looked less impressed. That doesn't change the diplomatic mess we're in. Sometimes messes lead to progress. Admiral, Jack said. Earth has been pushed around by the Council for too long. Maybe it's time we pushed back. The room fell silent as everyone considered his words. Finally, General Patel spoke. I recommend we grant Princess Lyra protection and put her research to immediate use. The benefits outweigh the risks. 6 months passed quickly. Princess Lyra adapted to life on Earth better than anyone expected. She worked with Earth scientists every day, teaching them her methods for faster terraforming. The Mars project was making amazing progress. Areas that had been red desert were now showing the first signs of plant life. Jack visited the Mars colony often, both to check on the project and to see Lyra. They had become close friends. He enjoyed showing her Earth things like rain, forests, and the simple joy of ice cream. Your world is beautiful, Lyra told him one day as they watched the sunset from a viewing platform on Mars. The sky was still mostly red, but hints of blue were appearing as the atmosphere slowly changed. So much variety. So much life. It wasn't always this way, Jack said. We nearly destroyed our planet once, before we learned to take care of it. Lyra nodded. That's why the Council thinks younger species aren't ready for advanced technology. They're afraid you'll misuse it. Some might, Jack admitted, but that doesn't mean everyone should be held back. Their conversation was interrupted when Jack's communication device beeped. It was Admiral Davis, and he looked worried. Howard, bring the princess back to Earth immediately, he ordered. The situation has changed. When they returned to Earth Central Command, they found the place buzzing with activity. Admiral Davis met them in his office, where news reports played on multiple screens. Kane Zoreth has made his move, the Admiral said grimly. He's announced that his daughter was kidnapped by Earth forces, and he demands her immediate return. That's not true. Lyra protested. I came willingly. The truth doesn't matter to him, Jack said. He's using this to pressure Earth. Admiral Davis nodded. The Galactic Council has offered to mediate the dispute. Their terms are simple. Return the princess and grant Silurian mining rights to our moon, plus restrictions on human expansion for the next 50 years. They planned this all along, Lyra realized. My father never cared about getting me back. He just wanted an excuse to demand concessions from Earth. What are we going to do? Jack asked. General Patel entered the room, carrying a datapad. Fight back with the truth. Princess Lyra has provided evidence of her father's corruption and the Council's unfair treatment of developing worlds. We're granting her political asylum. My father won't accept that, Lyra warned. We're not just telling your father, General Patel said with a smile. We're telling everyone. We've scheduled a broadcast to the entire galaxy. Princess Lyra, we'd like you to speak directly to the people of all worlds. The next day, Jack stood beside Lyra in Earth's United Nations Hall. Cameras broadcast their images to every corner of the galaxy. It was the largest audience in human history. Lyra stepped forward, her head held high. She looked every inch a princess, though she now wore Earth-style clothing. People of the galaxy, she began, her voice clear and strong. I am Princess Lyra of Silurian Prime. I was not kidnapped. I chose to leave because I discovered a terrible truth. She explained how the Council had been holding back developing worlds, keeping them dependent through protection treaties that actually serve to harvest their resources. "I have proof," she said, as charts and data appeared on screens behind her. "The Council has been taking resources from younger worlds while giving them only the minimum technology needed to be useful." The evidence was overwhelming. Records of Council meetings, resource transfers, and technology restrictions all showed a pattern of control and exploitation. "I choose Earth," Lyra declared at the end of her presentation, "because unlike my father and the Council, humans understand that true strength comes from lifting others up, not keeping them down." When the broadcast ended, Jack squeezed Lyra's hand. "You were amazing. But you know what happens next, right?" Lyra nodded. "The Council will strike back. Hard." "We'll be ready," Jack promised. That night, as they watched from the observation deck of Earth Central Command, they saw dozens of ships appear in orbit. The Council had sent its fleet. "It begins," Lyra said softly. Jack looked at the human ships moving to defensive positions. They were fewer and less advanced than the Council vessels, but they moved with purpose and coordination. "Yes," he agreed, "but not how the Council expects." The Council fleet hung in Earth's orbit like a ring of metal predators. Messages flooded Earth's communication systems, all with the same demand: return Princess Lyra or face consequences. "They've cut off our trade routes," Admiral Davis reported in the emergency meeting. "No Earth ships can leave or enter our solar system." "What about our colonies?" Jack asked, thinking of the people on Mars and the outer moons. "They have enough supplies for now," General Patel said, "but not for long." Lyra looked around the room at Earth's leaders. "I'm sorry to have brought this trouble to your world." "You didn't bring this trouble," Jack told her. "You just exposed what was already there. The Council has been waiting for an excuse to put Earth in its place." President Sofia Rivera, Earth's top leader, stood up from her chair. She was a small woman but carried herself with strength and calm. "We will not return Princess Lyra against her will," she announced, "nor will we submit to Council demands. But we cannot fight their entire fleet either." "We don't have to," Jack said. Everyone turned to look at him. "While Lyra has been working on terraforming, I've been making other preparations." He activated the room's main display screen. It showed a map of the galaxy with dozens of blinking lights. "These are worlds that have suffered under Council control," Jack explained. "Developing planets, mining colonies, even some older worlds that disagree with Council policies. I've been in contact with all of them since Princess Lyra arrived." "Without authorization?" Admiral Davis looked angry. "With my authorization," President Rivera said calmly. "Continue, Commander Howard." Jack nodded. "When Lyra made her broadcast, I sent her evidence to leaders on all these worlds. They've been waiting for proof of what they already suspected. And now they're ready to stand with us." As if on cue, the communication officer rushed into the room. "Madam President, we're receiving messages from 27 worlds. They're all declaring support for Earth and condemning Council actions." Lyra's eyes widened. 27 worlds. That's nearly a third of Council territory. Jack smiled. "And that's not all. Mining colonies are halting shipments. Trade hubs are redirecting resources. Supply ships are turning back." "You've created an alliance," President Rivera said, impressed. "We created an alliance," Jack corrected, looking at Lyra. "The princess provided the evidence. I just helped spread the word." For the next 3 days, Earth's leaders watched as the situation changed across the galaxy. The Council fleet remained in orbit, but now they had other problems to deal with. Worlds that had been quiet for centuries were suddenly speaking out, demanding changes. On the 4th day, Jack and Lyra were called to the President's office. A message had arrived from the Council. "They want to talk," President Rivera said. "Not just with Earth, but with representatives from all the worlds that have joined our cause. They're calling it the Coalition of Independent Systems." "Where do they want to meet?" Jack asked. "Neutral space. They're suggesting the construction of a station specifically for these talks. Lyra looked suspicious. It could be a trap. It could be, the president agreed. But it could also be the beginning of real change. The council has never faced this kind of united resistance before. Jack thought for a moment. If they're offering to build a station for talks, they're serious. That's a major investment. We need someone to represent Earth at these negotiations, President Rivera said, looking at Jack and Lyra. Someone who understands both human interests and council politics. Jack straightened his back. I'd be honored to serve, Madam President. So would I, Lyra added. Good, because I'm sending you both. President Rivera handed them official documents. Commander Howard is now Earth's official diplomat to the coalition. Princess Lyra will serve as special advisor. Later that day, as Jack and Lyra prepared for their new mission, they stood on the observation deck looking up at the stars. Did you really contact 27 worlds? Lyra asked. Jack nodded. Your father and the council have been making enemies for centuries. All these worlds needed was someone to show them they weren't alone in their frustration. And proof of the council's corruption, Lyra added. That too, Jack smiled. What do you think will happen now? Lyra looked thoughtful. The council won't give up power easily. They'll try to divide us, make separate deals with different worlds. Then we'll have to make sure the coalition stays strong, Jack said. Together, Lyra agreed, taking his hand. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Earth's ships patrol among the stars. The council fleet was still there, but now it seemed less threatening somehow. The balance of power had shifted, and everyone knew it. 1 year after Jack had first met Princess Lyra in the council archives, they stood together on the newly built Alliance diplomatic station. The station floated in neutral space, a perfect circle of metal and glass that represented the new balance of power in the galaxy. Representatives from all 27 coalition worlds gathered in the main hall. Some looked like humans, others had tentacles or wings or glowing skin, but all shared a common purpose: to create a fairer system for all worlds, not just the powerful few. I never thought I would see this day, Lyra said quietly to Jack as they watched delegates arrive. My father always said that lesser worlds could never work together. Jack smiled. Maybe that's why he failed. He never understood that cooperation can be stronger than control. The negotiations had not been easy. For 3 months, they had argued and compromised and sometimes even threatened to walk away. The council representatives, led by Vrex with his color-changing scales, had tried every trick to divide the coalition. But Jack and Lyra had been ready. Jack brought human determination and creativity to the talks. Lyra brought insider knowledge of council tactics. Together, they had kept the coalition united through the hardest moments. Now it was time to sign the Mutual Development Accord. This new agreement would change how the galaxy worked. Developing worlds would get access to more technology and fair trade. The council would still exist, but with far less power than before. Kane Zorith had refused to attend. He remained on Xalarian Prime, still angry that his plan had backfired so completely. But many other council leaders had accepted the new reality. Some had even joined the coalition, seeing opportunity in cooperation rather than control. As the signing ceremony began, Jack watched Lyra take her place among the coalition leaders. She wore Earth-style clothes, but still carried herself like the princess she was. In many ways, she had become the heart of the coalition, using her knowledge to help worlds her father had once looked down on. They're calling it the Human Rebellion in Council Space, Jack mentioned as they stood watching ships from across the galaxy dock at the station. Lyra smiled, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight through the station's large windows. Inaccurate, as usual. It wasn't rebellion, it was evolution. And it wasn't just human. It was what happens when someone finally believes in the unwanted. After the ceremony, Jack and Lyra walked through the station's garden level. Plants from dozens of worlds grew together, creating something new and beautiful. What will you do now? Jack asked, "Will you return to Xilarian Prime someday?" Lyra touched a blue flower that looked like Earth's roses, but gave off gentle light. "Someday, perhaps, when my father is ready to listen. But for now, my work is here, with the Coalition." She paused, then added more softly, "And with you, if you'll have me." Jack took her hand. Their fingers intertwined, blue and pink, alien and human. "I thought you'd never ask." As they looked out at the stars, Jack thought about how much had changed. 1 year ago, he had been just another human representative, ignored and mocked by the Council. 1 year ago, Lyra had been an unwanted princess, about to be sent away to protect her father's reputation. Now they stood at the center of a new galactic order. Not because they were the strongest or the richest, but because they had seen value in each other when no one else did. "Earth Command has offered me a new position," Jack said. "Coalition Ambassador, with a new ship for diplomatic missions." "Sounds like an adventure," Lyra replied. "Do you get to choose your science advisor?" Jack laughed. "I was hoping you'd volunteer." Beyond the station windows, ships from Coalition worlds moved in graceful patterns. No longer afraid of Council restrictions, they traveled freely, exchanging goods and ideas. On a dozen planets, Lyra's terraforming technology was bringing new life to barren lands. On 100 more, people looked to the stars with hope instead of fear. Across the galaxy, the story spread of how the mighty had fallen because they mocked the wrong human and discarded the wrong princess. Parents on countless worlds told their children the legend of Jack and Lyra, who proved that compassion wasn't weakness, and that sometimes the greatest strength comes from seeing value where others see only disappointment. On Earth, they simply called it diplomacy done right. As the station rotated slowly in space, Jack and Lyra stood side by side, watching the stars. Behind them lay a year of challenges overcome. Ahead stretched a future neither could have imagined when they first met. "Ready for whatever comes next?" Jack asked. Lyra smiled, squeezing his hand. "With you, always." And that, as they say in stories across 1,000 worlds, was just the beginning.